Put your hands behind you. If your arms are very short, you might put them even on two blocks. Here in Baddha Konasana, keeping the heels connected, pressing to each other, the heel bones, you want to move the knee further and further forward without the top of the femur falling forward. So imagine somebody behind you puts one belt on each side, they pull the belt back so the top femur releases back more, while with their feet they support your pelvis forward. So that as you release the pelvis forward, particularly the two hip bones forward, the femur doesn't fall forward, not at the top of the femur. At the knee, femur will fall forward. So with your hands behind you, imagining if necessary that you're making the thigh bone longer and longer and longer, while the lower leg becomes shorter and shorter and shorter, begin to move the knees much further forward, but not the top femur. Top femur is held back while the knees are moved forward. Holding the knees moving forward, holding the top of the femur back behind you, bring the two hip bones forward. Not the whole pelvis, just the two hip bones forward. More in a sense of as though you are rotating the right hip bone towards the left, left towards the right. To understand that a little more completely, let's do one side at a time. Holding the knees forward, holding the top femurs back. Rotate the left hip bone towards the right. You can turn your shoulders a little, your head a little, but not much. Bring the action from the base of the pelvis. So you rotate the left hip bone towards the right much more. And if you succeed in creating that sensation, the more you rotate the left hip bone towards the right, the greater space there is in the right groin, as though the right thigh is held back much more. And if you let go of that action, rotate the right hip bone now towards the left. And as you do that, see that the space in the left groin increases, as though the left thigh is held much further back. And I will give an example. Suppose in my body, let's say when I rotate the right hip towards the left, the sensation in the left thigh bone is that there is good space there. But when I do the opposite side, taking the left hip bone to the right, in the right, there is much more space. Which means naturally in this body, my ability to create more space in the groin is better on my right side, not as good on the left side. So when seated symmetrically, using my hands behind me, when I rotate both the hip bones towards each other, I would pay more attention to rotating my right hip bone towards the left, less attention in rotating the left towards the right, so that I create more sense of space in the left, which is lacking compared to my right side. Once again, do one side at a time so you can gauge as to which side is better for you. Rotate the left hip bone towards the right. Try not to untuck your pelvis as you do that. Try not to move the ribs sideways as you do that. Keep the spine in a vertical orientation. So there is only rotation, not a lateral movement. and gauge in your own estimate, gauge how much space you're able to create in the right groin as you do that. Then release, let go. Take the right hip bone to the left. And by doing that, if necessary, a few times, find out in your own body which side has better sense of opening in the groin. I'll wait here for a minute or so. You can try each side as you want. Whichever side has more opening, on that side, as you breathe, particularly in deeper breath, the Apana Vayu will drop much closer to the pelvic floor. Discovering that automatic tendency in your particular body. Now, when you attempt to take both the hip bones towards each other circularly, simultaneously, whichever groin had more space, take that hip bone, rotate to the opposite side a little more actively. So if my right groin had more space, I take the right hip bone little more actively towards the left, left also moves towards the right, but not as actively. And when you are doing one-sided posture like Trikonasana and so on, this information becomes rather important. The degree to which you can equalize that sensation, rotating the hip bones into each other, to that degree, the space behind you in the sacrum will be equal on the left and the right side of the vertebral column. Not only you want a wide sense of space generally in the sacrum, but you want to have it equal between the left and the right side. I cannot make it equal in my body. The funny thing is I used to think that yes, my space is equal on the two sides, only to discover that that was a wrong conclusion. It's very difficult to make it equal. Even people who can kick a soccer ball equally with the left and the right foot, I'm not sure they can make this space equal. I used to play soccer a lot and often with some really very, very good players. Even good players who could kick the ball equally with the left and the right foot, it was not equal. They were only better than the rest of us. So one has to pay attention to that. Can I call it lack of symmetry? And come and watch. Let me do this. In giving an example earlier in Baddha Konasana, I was saying, suppose there is more space in my right groin. Here is what's going to happen if I do Trikonasana to my right side. There is more space here. Compared to if I'm doing it to the left side, there is not as much space here. So when I'm attempting to twist my trunk here towards the left, I'm doing Trikonasana to the right, I'm attempting to turn my trunk to the left, my ability to turn here will be more restricted because this groin is holding it back. Whichever side had more space, on that side, I will not be able to turn as freely. And yet, that's where I have bigger access. So what I'm saying is, while this side may be more difficult to turn, I would pay much more attention to this side Trikonasana to turn. Because there is space, I have the ability to turn. On this side, on my left side, it's fooling me. It thinks, yes, I'm doing okay. when the only reason I'm doing okay is because this femur is falling forward. If this femur is held back towards the outside, like on this side, it is held back naturally, shall I say, then my ability to turn on that side when I'm doing Trikonasana to my left side here will not be as good. Yeah? In other words, if this femur creates a space by dropping towards the wall, and then I try to turn from there, this is going to be more difficult. Okay? What appears to be easy because it is collapsing forward is actually not easy. So, to repeat once again, if there is more space on my right side, then to do Trikonasana on this side, I would spend less time here. Relative to that, when I do Trikonasana to this side, I spend much more time here to constantly correct that this femur, although it rotates out, it doesn't fall towards the wall. It doesn't fall away from the wall. It falls towards the wall. And I attempt to separate my pelvic action from that to turn the trunk. So I'll spend more time doing Trikonasana on the tighter side compared to on my flexible side, on my less tight side, shall I say. Any question? Shall we go? Trikonasana. Having wide space in the sacrum, consider how you can establish a sense of height in the pelvis first. Meaning the sit bones move towards the back foot, the hip bones move away from the back foot or away from the sit bones. And understand, at least logically understand, in the pelvis this is not possible. So any sense of height you feel in the pelvis is necessarily a pranic height. It cannot be musculoskeletal. And whatever sense of height you are able to have or create in the pelvis this way, find its continuity behind your sternum. What will happen is, if this is more flexible side for you, if this is your better side, shall we say, then on this side, when you do Trikonasana, you have less tendency to do a back bend. On the other side, you will do a more of a back bend to find that opening and that height in the chest. And inhale and come up.